Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Friday means relentless learning. Welcome to another edition. We do this most Fridays at noon Pacific. I'm very excited about today's relentless learning, so we're going to go right into it. I have my good friend Kyle is in the green room. I can see him. Today, what we do in Relentless Learning is we have 45 minutes that we've scheduled for this. I appreciate you all joining us. And during that 45 minutes, we're going to present what I refer to as two big ideas. And these are things that I sometimes refer to as aha response things that will make you think and help you to see the world differently. And we're going to do that usually about 10 minutes, and then we leave about 15 minutes at the end for folks to ask questions. And I do encourage folks to put any comments that you want into the comments box. If you have any questions, we'll address those after the presentations, but feel free to put comments in there as we go along. We certainly appreciate that. Kyle, my friend Kyle, is going to present 5 incompatible goals in software. And before we bring him on, I'm going to present Making Decisions Agile. Want to talk a little bit about this relentless learning. As I say, we do it most Fridays. Every once in a while, we take a week off. Next week, we're going to take it off. And I'm calling that spring break. So April 19th, there will be no relentless learning. Going to come back on the 26th. From time to time, we do a longer seminar-based presentation once a month. And I'm very excited because people have been asking me about this thing called the VUCA MBA, which I'm going to talk about briefly. I'm going to present the introduction during that special seminar so that people can get a flavor for the VUCA MBA, what I teach, how I teach it, and maybe get some folks excited about that. At the very least, you get an opportunity to check it out. Now, this Relentless Learning is sponsored by the VUCA MBA. VUCA, for those of you who don't know, is a acronym that comes to us from the acronym generating complex called the United States military originally. It stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It is a way to describe the world. There are other acronyms out there that you might have run into, TAMF and others. Basically, what folks are saying, and I agree with them, is the world's changing pretty quickly. And we can see it when we look at things like AI, which is on everybody's mind, and we'll probably end up talking about it some today, who knows. But the world is changing, and it's volatile, it is uncertain, it's complex and ambiguous, it's other things as well. But the question really comes in what the MBA is about. MBA stands for Mindset for Business Agility, is how do we not only survive in this VUCA world, which is kind of tough, but how can we thrive in it? And it's about mindset and other things that can help people see the world differently and help them be a little bit more optimal or successful in this VUCA world. That's what it's all about. Now, for those of you who've joined us before, welcome back. If you're new, one of the things that I've done in the past, and I just continue to do because people seem to like it, is I wrote a book not too long ago, which is called Apke's Golden Rule of Agile, Focus on Value Delivery. I think it's the best book that I've written, maybe because it's my baby now, it's the new one. But I think it helps some people. And I think there's some things in there that you might enjoy. And so what I've done is I've decided to give that away for free. And all you got to do is take a little phone up there against the QR code. It will take you to a page that looks just like this. Put in your name and email. We'll send you a digital copy of the book immediately. I'm not going to spam you. I'll remind you about Relentless Learning from time to time, but that's about it. And obviously, if you don't want to, you can unsubscribe at any point in time. So real quick, in the comments, I've already put in some comments prior to the show. There are some helpful links that are ways to get in touch with me. And so those are here on this slide, but they're also in the comments. So I want to direct your attention to those. And I also put a link to some material I'm going to reference today, which is a particular book that I'm going to talk about shortly. In fact, I'm going to talk about that right now. So my big idea for the day is talking about decisioning. And I want to kind of talk about some things I talk about in my training. I talk about that aha response when we see the world differently, and it kind of changes things. It makes things a little bit clearer for us, and we kind of go, aha. I liken it to when the story of the Grinch, and when the Grinch stole Christmas, and he took all the presents up to the top of the mountain, if you remember the show, and then he listens as the Who's are not crying, but they're singing their song, and then he gets that aha response. He figures out, oh, this is what it's really about. And he sees the world differently. And not only that, does his heart grows. I won't say that your heart's going to grow by any aha response you might have from our talks today, but maybe you will see the world differently, and it will be helpful. I also talk about in my training something I call the duh response. The duh response is something, the reason I'm talking about it is I'm going to tell the story of the duh response and how it came to be. It's something that we know, but we kind of overlook. So this story about decisioning and agility, I think, is really important. And I have to talk about some time that I spent recently with a company, helping them to create a scaling mechanism that was custom. And we had a specific name for it. And I was working with a whole bunch of folks to make this thing happen. And I happened to be on a plane reading a book, and it was Kyle. So there's a lot of coincidences here. Kyle kind of recommended some things that I should read, and I finally got some time to read because I was stuck on a plane. And I'm reading a book. It's called The Art of Action by Stephen Bungay, and that's the one that I put in the comments. And what he talks about is he talks about the military. Now, the military is for those of you who don't know, has a lot of agility in certain places. And in The Art of Action, Stephen talks about something called mission command, which is one of the things that Kyle was helping me to kind of understand, and recommending some things that I read and pay attention to. And I got that duh kind of thinking on the plane, because what I recognized is what they were doing to be more agile, quote unquote, in the military is they were figuring out how to create a framework of decisions and have those decisions be made at certain levels with certain people owning those decisions, and trying to move the decisions as close as they could to the people who were in the front line, for lack of a better word. And this is a lot of what we do in Agile, is we try to move those decisions. And when I was looking at the framework we were trying to create, I saw a lot of parallels. And the light went off. It was more of a, not an aha, it was kind of a duh. I knew it was there, but now I had it a little bit more succinctly. Is what we were creating is we were creating a decisioning framework. We were deciding who owned what, who got what funding, what decisions could they make, how those decisions affected things all the way down to the team level and the product level. And so I was very excited about this, and I come up to the headquarters, and I go into where the C-suite is, and I get in there very early in the morning so I can catch this person that I was working with. And I sat down with him and I said, you know what we're doing here is we're creating a decisioning framework. And that's where the duh came in, because he looked at me and he I don't think he said duh, but he gave me that kind of thing. Yeah, duh, that's what we're doing. And it really hit home to me at that point. And so that's where this duh response goes to, because we both knew this. The problem that we had is not only did we have to, in some ways, kind of create this thing, and it's not from scratch. We borrowed ideas from here and there and other places, but we created this decisioning framework. We didn't describe it as such. And a lot of the job is not just creating the framework, because creating a framework and other things, that can sometimes be rather easy, but it's communicating that framework. It's getting people to be incentivized to use the framework, et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of what I was doing, a lot of the coaches I was working with, our job was to communicate. And I think it really started to click when we understood that what we were doing was a decisioning framework. because I talk a lot about how we see the world being really, really important to how we think and behave in the world. Once we started talking to others and using those words and saying what we've really created is not just this scaling framework, but we've created a decisioning framework, because it was the scaling of the decisions and the authority and responsibility that really counted. And so when I talk about the big idea, when you look at your organization and you ask yourself the question about agility, I don't want to talk about Agile. I want to talk about agility, because sometimes when we talk about Agile, we concentrate on the frameworks. I don't want to concentrate on the frameworks. I want to concentrate on agility. I want to concentrate on delivering value to our customers quickly. One of the biggest delays we have in our systems, and I believe the correct term, and maybe when I bring Kyle on, he'll have a better term for me. I think the term is bureaucracy. We spend so much time making decisions, and we don't even really pay attention to it. And sometimes we don't even count it. But it may be those decisions that we're making. Think about waterfall. The decision to fund something. How long does that take? As soon as you have an idea, what do? You have to put it with a whole bunch of other ideas. You got to package it up. You got to go to certain people. You got to get their blessing. You got to go get funding. Then you got to go put teams together, blah, 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 blah. It takes a long time to make a decision. Meanwhile, if you can create a good decisioning framework, one where you're pushing down to the lowest levels possible, the ability to make decisions, you can make decisions much, much faster. This is one of the reasons why in that particular job that I was talking about, one of the things that we also did in doing that decisioning framework was the funding. If you fund by project, you're going to have that problem where it takes a long time to make a decision on what to do. And sometimes that is longer than it takes to build the stuff. But we spend a lot of time on how we build things. And it's not that how we build things isn't important. It's certainly critical to what we do. But how often do we pay attention to the entire, what I'm going to refer to as the idea supply chain? I've got a great idea. To me, once I identify that idea, the clock starts ticking. And a lot of the clock ticking is the inability to make what I would consider agile decisions. The ability to make decisions quickly and effectively. So when you're looking at frameworks, one of the things that I really encourage you to do, whether you take one off the shelf or whether you create your own, make sure you understand who gets to make the decisions, who owns the decisions, and how can we make the decisions themselves more agile. So that's my idea for the day. I want to bring in my good friend Kyle. He's in a Starbucks in Texas. How are you doing today, Kyle? You can hear the people in the background.
I'm doing all right. Are we hearing me?
Yeah, no, we've got you. It's
okay,
great.
Cool.
Cool. I have to tell the folks the reason why you're in the Starbucks in Texas, because you went out and you were chasing the eclipse.
I was, and I found it.
You found it? Was it good?
It was excellent. One of my dear friends who I visited when I was in Austin told me, if you look at an eclipse and you say, hey, an 80 or 90% eclipse, that's like an 8 or 9 on your scale of 10. Well, a full eclipse is a 47 on that same scale.
Okay.
Or a 470, right? It's really remarkable. And the first layer of clouds cleared just enough at the right time, right? It was cloudy before and it was cloudy after, but I had 10 minutes of full eclipse. Perfect.
That's awesome. And I really do appreciate you taking the time during, vacation, family vacation, to spend it with us. And for those of you who don't know, Kyle's been on the show before, and I've talked about Kyle before. We've known each other now for about 10 years. I think it's going on about a decade. And I think we've worked together a couple of times. Recently, we just worked together. The thing, for those of you who know me, all you need to know about Kyle, but I'll tell you more about Kyle, is that when I had finally got the budget and got into a position to hire an Agile coach, he was the first person I went after. He has been a mentor to me. He's been a friend to me. He has been a constant intellectual challenge to me in a good way. Always gets me thinking. He is probably one of the people I think, though he's much more than this. But when I think of technical Agile coaching, which is really important, things like XP and pair programming and all these wonderful things, TDD and Kyle's like right at the top there. In fact, he says he's a tech guy focused on how easy you can change your software starting in 1998, which was before Agile. So somewhere along the line, Agile caught up with Kyle, and then he became what we refer to as an Agile coach. And he's been doing it for a very long time. Just wonderful stuff, written books, talks, podcasts, you name it. He's on, for those of you who are on LinkedIn, he's probably the only person who spends more time on LinkedIn than me, it seems. He's out there in the public. He's got great ideas, and so I can't say enough about Kyle. But what is it, before we get into your big idea today, what is it that you're working on? What are you thinking about? What are you doing these days?
So I have started reframing how I talk about software as, look, I'm about software maintainability. How easy can you change your code? And that's social dynamics to how easy you can change your code, financing of the software, how easy can you change your code, how you write the code, how you do your deployments, the whole range of things. But my thing these days is, how easy can you change your code?
Yeah, and for those who might be interested, Kyle, do us a favor. I know when you get somewhere, you can do it after the fact. Put some of your ways to get in touch with you. Probably the best way is LinkedIn anyway.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, perfect. So, anything that you want to promote or that before we get into your talk today?
I'm not very good at the whole self-promotion thing. I'm more into the ideas. So let's play with those.
All right, well, let's play with the ideas. And the idea we're going to play with today is 5 incompatible goals of software. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the heck out of your way so that you can make that presentation. I think I need to help you. If you share your screen, I think I need to help get that on the screen, and then I'll get out of the way.
Yeah, as soon as I have, I don't see the technique to.
So there's a.
Oh, I have a present button.
There you go. It's the beauty of LinkedIn Live. We are live, and you can tell.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
I thought
If you click on present, you should be able to click on share screen, and when you do so, I'll add it to the
present
screen.
So I'm traveling, so I'm gonna have to switch up and go this way. Are we seeing? Can we see this one?
No, I don't see it yet.
Okay. That share. How about now?
Got it now. We got it now. So 5 incompatible software things. I'm going to get out of the way. Kyle, take it away.
Okay, excellent. I'm pulling out my phone to make sure that I don't go over too much. Here we go. I've been working on an idea recently. So, like Larry was talking about decisioning frameworks and how we're approaching this. Both Larry and I have been wandering around the Agile space for a long time. And one of the things you find if you wander around Agile for a long time is you find out that a lot of times you go to do an Agile transformation, and you get a quarter of the way through, and the team starts to get some benefits, and the customer starts to get some benefits, and the product is doing better, and then it gets shut down, or you stop being able to move forward, or it stays stuck in this team, and you can't really move past that. And it's kind of frustrating as a transformation agent, as a coach. Heck, when I was early on in my Agile career, I tried this at a large organization, and I started moving forward, and it went decently, but then it stopped, and I was trying to go, why did it stop? And I wandered off, and there's whole fields of graduate school studying the topic of why doesn't any of this change stuff work, or why does little of the change stuff work? And so here it is 20 years later, and I'm coming back and I'm looking at the question of why do my efforts at solving a customer problem fail? I want to go in and help teams build software that are good for the customer and good for the shareholders. I want to do it so it's good for them today. I want to do it so it's good for them tomorrow. I want to do it so it's good for the customers and the business itself in a decade. How do you do software like that? And so that's what I've been thinking. I don't know, as Larry said, 98. I think this was the central idea that was floating around in the object-oriented software community in, well, as early as the 80s, but I wasn't paying attention until the mid-late 90s. So I've got this question, what's the problem? And my current theory, hypothesis, my current approach is, and I've been co-developing this, and you can see on my screen at the bottom here, it points out that I have been doing this work with two of my dear friends, Erica Lenz and Tom Malani. The theory we've got is, I don't think everybody's got the same goal. When I go in trying to solve problems, and my goal is to say, how do I build software that where I can be responsive and I can update according to what the customer needs, particularly as their needs or their expression of their needs change? If that's my world, what happens if I run into somebody whose bonus depends on delivering a fixed set of features on a fixed date? Old school Agile Kyle would have said, well, they suck, they're wrong, they're bad, they are not trying to serve the customer. And I don't know, I don't think that's a nice way to think about it. I think instead, and this is where I've gotten to, different organizations, different people in different organizations, they have different goals. Kyle, who got really excited about something back in 98, has been chasing how do you build software that's easy to change so that we can respond to changes and make both the customer happier and make better results for my business. If that's a for-profit business, that means better profit. If that's a non-profit, it means better achievement of the donor's goals. If that's a government agency, it means better able to follow the laws that we have, right? The organization has a goal, the customers have a goal. And if you can build responsive software that you can change as you need, then it's better for everybody. But I wasn't looking at everybody. I was, in the last 5 years, hanging out at a major retailer. The major retailer said, look, here's my deal. 50% of my total sales for the year occur between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't care how changeable the code is. I care that it doesn't break between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we're going to do a code freeze on Halloween, and the code is going to be frozen. And none of this soft, slushy code freeze nonsense. The code is going to be frozen. We are not going to touch it. We're not going to change it. Nothing moves between the end of October and the new year. Fact is, for that organization, stability in their code has 10, 20, 100 times the value of this responsiveness thing that Kyle has been chasing. Other organizations say, hey, you know what? We have a government mandated deadline. If this thing doesn't go out the door on July 7th, then we get $1 million fine every day. I don't care what it takes, what you have to break, how many people you have to kill. I need this software to be done with these features on this date. Alternately, filling the same Black Friday thing, video games that release the day after, video games that release on December 1st make like a quarter as much money as video games that release on Thanksgiving or on Black Friday, or right near Black Friday. So there's really good reasons, and there are some bad reasons too. Well, bad reasons, kind of. The best learnings, one of the things that kicked off this approach to thinking was I was hanging out with a super competent, like she solves all the problems all the time, doesn't matter, give it to her and she'll fix it. I was hanging out with a super competent manager, and super competent manager said, yeah, Kyle, you're going on about responsiveness and customer value and need. You know, my bonus, it's attached to delivering fixed features on a fixed date. If the company wanted me to pay attention to customer value, I would love to pay attention to customer value. That sounds like a better thing to do. But if they're going to penalize me in my bonus for doing what's good for the company, I'm sorry, I don't love them that much. I'm going to deliver what they are asking me to deliver as a manager, not what is good for the shareholders. All right? And if they would pay me differently, I would love to do what you're doing, but I'm not going to sacrifice my bonus to be good for the company. It's really hard to be upset with her. So here's my line. There's 5 basic goals that you see in business when doing software. One of the goals is get the thing done. Another goal is don't break anything. A third goal is much harder to say, but essentially it's give the leaders visibility and control over what's going on without taking very much of their time. That's legibility. The fourth goal is what Agile started with, and I call that responsiveness. Hey, can we change directions as we need to be better for the business and better for the customer? And then there's finally the newer version, the stuff I've seen at the leading edge of the Agile DevOps, DevX, craftsmanship movement these days, which I would call probing. We're no longer interested just in responding to change. We're going out and hunting for the changes that we need to make before they would naturally show up. And it's tricky and it's complicated, and I don't want to talk too much about it. But these are 5 different goal approaches. And what gets you to succeed at being done doesn't get you to succeed at being responsive. What gets you to succeed at being responsive doesn't succeed at getting you done. And knowing that these different goals matter and that which one your people are trying to pursue makes a huge difference in how the organization runs, that's a big deal. I originally looked at this as a time frame thing. If people are talking about finishing something, they're probably talking about done. If they're talking about week-long cycles, they're probably talking about responsive. If they're talking about month-long cycles or quarter-long cycles, they're probably talking about legibility. Yeah, that's kind of true. But the key for me these days is what matters is what goal the people in the organization have. There's a lot of common words we use. I'm not actually going to read any of this. And then there's a lot of practices, right? The fact that you get a bonus for delivering projects on time is a practice. The fact that we do our accounting in terms of capital expenditures on a project by project basis rather than on a hour by hour basis also makes a difference in what incentives work out. And if you get enough practices pulling together for the goal of stability, or for the goal of completion, or for the goal of responsiveness, then you get a gravity well, and all the other practices that you're trying to do get sucked into the same direction. I think that's all I need to say. There are different goals in software. When you have an approach where you're trying to solve a problem for somebody, as a consultant and a change person, it's really helpful if you make sure you're going in the same direction, whether you're solving the problem they need you to solve.
I appreciate that. It's very interesting, and I know that I think we talked about similar things many times, but especially in the time frame. Now you're starting to put it into certain business goals, which I think is pretty interesting evolution of the work that you're doing. I want to remind people while we're doing that we have about 15 minutes left, and during that time we like to take questions from y'all. And I see that there's quite a few folks here who've joined us. I appreciate you being here. So if you have any questions for myself or Kyle on what we've presented, any comments, please put those in the comments. Sometimes we got chatty people, sometimes we don't, but feel free to do that. In the meantime, I want to talk a couple of things as I'm listening to you speak. And I had some questions myself and wanted to get your thoughts on certain things. You use the word incentives a lot. When we look at your gravity, is the gravity itself? I mean, is the incentives the gravity?
So some of it, but I mean, you've run into it at multiple places we have worked together. We have run into cases where you go, "Hey, I want to introduce this incentive." Or I don't want to introduce the incentive. I want to introduce this practice. And the problem is when you introduce a practice that's helping with a different goal than the ones that we're pursuing most of them, what ends up happening is my practice starts being sand in the gears for the other goal.
Right.
So like, hey, I've got a goal. I want to deliver the project on time. Great, we're going to have a stand-up every day so we can adjust what we're going to work on. But that's not getting me to finish my steps on exactly the schedule I planned. The stand-up is sand in the gears. It's in the way. And so what happens is the stand-up gets unrolled, and it becomes a report that you're on time meeting.
Right.
Instead of something, because we really have the goal of delivering on time. And so all of the practices you try and add are going to be pulled into orbit of deliver on time.
Right. I see David's got a question I'm going to get to in a second. The thing though that I want to get in there, I mean, is do we have times where the goal as stated is different than the goal as incentivized?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I got super excited about this because we Agilists, we keep talking about waterfall. The waterfall people are trying to make the product stable mostly. They are trying to say, hey, when you build this new thing, let's not break the old stuff. How about that? That's really what they're doing. And the waterfall people keep being overwhelmed by the, no, we're going to get it done people. And so all of the controls we have for waterfall don't get used decently. They get rolled over and pulled into, we're going to sign something that says we did a design review, but we're getting this done on time.
Yeah. Well, David, it wasn't a question, but I'll put up the response. Tell me how you measure me. I'll tell you how you behave. And I believe he said that this. I'm assuming that this is the person who said it and when they said it. I don't know, but
it's been said a lot of times.
Yeah, I think show me the incentives as well. I mean, because measurement is an incentive. The interesting thing is even though it may not all incentives are monetary in nature as well. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to look at that. But certainly there are incentives that are monetary in nature. Now, when we look at those 5 different goals, as you're calling them, there are actually, now there's going to be certain things that would be common as far as practices to some of those goals. And my perception is this, so I want to get your perception. A lot of those things we do put under the rubric of Agile. I mean, it's kind of in that big umbrella. I can see if you want to get things stable, CI/CD is a good way of getting things stable, right? Test-driven development is a good way of keeping things stable. So
this is actually the big conflict in my thinking right now, right? So you called it, you caught it, it's pretty easy. There are a reasonable number of practices that will help us no matter what.
Talk about that.
I cannot imagine that any goal you've got is poorly served by getting together and talking about where we actually are for 15 minutes in the morning.
Right.
Like, I just can't see it.
Yeah.
If you have a software project and your software project is due in more than a week, then adding software technical practices, CI/CD, test-driven development, social programming, those help you. Now, they don't help you in the first week, maybe very much.
Right.
But by the end of the month and by the end of the quarter, for sure, you're going faster. They help anyway.
Right.
At the same time, sprint planning assumes you're going to change directions, right? We are making a decision about what we're going to do next. And if we already know and we're going to do the same thing we planned on 47 months ago, I don't know why I need sprint planning.
Yeah, my question would be, is the world not changing enough? I mean, do you have enough out there? I mean, the predominance of what I see is that the world is VUCA. I'm assuming there's places that maybe isn't, but if it is VUCA, I mean, planning frequently is probably a good thing. Yes.
It is so I'm going to be very careful. I think Agile started and they made a mild miscalculation in how they started talking. The miscalculation was Agile said, how do we solve problems for the users? How do we solve problems for the customers? How do we solve problems for and I'm going to just say shareholders? Mm-hmm. Those are the only groups we talked about. Yeah. We are solving what's good for the business and we are solving what's good for the user. We're not solving what's good. I mean, okay. And in third place is the team itself. What about the management structure? What about the accountants? Are we solving their problems? No, we're causing their problems. Right?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it comes back to incentive, right? And I think it comes down to systems. Uh-huh. And I think that the take home that I'll have, if I'm taking what you're putting out there, and I think there's a lot of validity to it, and I take it to other people, the thing I'm going to take to them is going to say, look, are these really your goals? Because I don't think they should be your goals. Now, if they are, great, right? Probably want somebody else other than me.
But like, I know how to solve some of those problems, but I wouldn't do all of the same things that I do when I come in for an Agile. And I feel like I've been stupid for 25 years now because I keep coming in to try and help people and assume what their goal is.
So what's really funny with Kyle and I is we almost independently come to some conclusions. I had a conversation like this, similar to this just the other day, of I believe I can make good things happen in most organizations I go to, or as I said, in the world. But I don't know if the world wants me to. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
So if I'm at a giant retailer that makes all of their money in December, I probably want to focus more on stability than adaptability. And I have a life, I've built my entire career about focusing on adaptability. And I haven't taken seriously that some people care more about the stability than they do about the adaptability.
But the interesting thing to me, though, is when we look at adaptability and we look at, again, I'm going to get back to these practices. If you look at the practices that facilitate adaptability, they're the same practices that would facilitate stability. Because the Big Bang approach to delivering software is I've got one chance to get it right, but the best way to get it right is by doing it so frequently that it's a non-event. Yes,
okay, so yes, and. So let me give you one extra that I didn't include in this. There's also a cost of disruption. And if you're pursuing done, then moving to stability you can get to without changing all that much. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to get to adaptability is a big change.
Yeah.
Right? Adaptability may require messing with your VP's reporting structures. That's a big deal. Mm. I can get to legibility and reporting up to the VPs so they can make decisions every quarter or so. And that's not, it's not the same value proposition, but it's also not the same level of change. And so once you include the how big of a change is it to get to there, then I think there is a call to be made where some people will say, I want to get to stability and not change that much.
Mm. Yeah, it's fascinating. Because really, the one thing that we could talk about this all day. I know we've done it many, many times, and we don't have all that much time. There's one other thing that came to mind as well that, and I don't see it in here, and obviously this is just a model; it doesn't have to include everything. But I want to get your perspective vis-a-vis change fatigue. How does that fit at all in what we're talking about here?
I would call that a different model. I think that almost none of us take change fatigue seriously enough. It's enormously big as a thing in this, and every developer and tester who's been in a company for more than 3 years has seen 3 different change initiatives for what we're going to do and how we're going to change things. And we've all learned to say, I'm going to smile and I'm going to shut up and I'm going to do the same thing I always did.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it doesn't help that the flavor of the day, at least for now, is a lot of people getting laid off, and psychological safety is probably at an all-time low. Obviously, that intersects with it. I appreciate you taking some time from your family vacation. Hold up at the Starbucks. I heard the Frappuccino machine or something going a couple times, and sharing that with us. I want to remind folks that we're here most Fridays, though we are taking off next Friday. We'll be back on April 26th. I'll be doing a longer form seminar, which would be the introduction to my Buka MBA. Some people are interested. I hope you can join us there. I appreciate those folks who joined us today. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. Kyle, anything, parting words of wisdom before we let you go today?
Thanks for coming to think about it. Yes, I do have one. Other people's goals aren't stupid. They have goals. They probably have good reasons for their goals. Be empathetic even to the people you think are morons for trying to just finish the fixed set of project on time.
I think that's good advice at any time. Open-mindedness, humility, these are things that you tell me all the time that I need to work on, and I continue to work on as much as I possibly can. So thank you so much. It's great to see you as always. Kyle, you have a wonderful weekend. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. Be well, Larry. Be well all.